A breakout season from our Colorado Rockies team has led to a couple of players making the home run derby here. Rafael Murillo and Neil Dorsey both here going to participate. Now, normally I don't include the All-Star activities in the series. Typically, I just don't care for them, but with both players being the top two home run getters in all of baseball, thought I would do so just for this year. If you want to see more All-Star activities going forward, you can let me know. If it has a lot of support, then I might do so, but me personally, I usually just skip them over. Neil Dorsey here up first. He has to beat 19 here, earn that 30 seconds of bonus time. Has a chance to win in the final moments, but that hit does not have the carry. So he has to go into an overtime period here. 4-4 here with the final 10 seconds. And unlike with the first time around, he was able to get that final home run to take the lead in the final seconds. Neil Dorsey advances. Now, if both players go through the bracket, we could see a Rocky versus Rocky home run derby championship, which would be super fun here. Murillo has a little bit tougher of a time to beat here and didn't really get off to a good start here, but he does earn that crucial 30 seconds of bonus time, and we're going to watch all 30 seconds of those here because they're pretty dang good. Spoiler alert. I thought there was no chance with maybe like a minute left to go. He was so far behind, but starting to heat up in the final minute and into bonus time here. And he has hit a home run every single time in bonus time. Has a chance to come back and tie it with this final hit. And he does. I think he hit 7 or 8 straight home runs to finish. Also, he could tie. Both players need to go into the overtime extra round here. But Murillo, an excellent finish here. Unfortunately, though, it looks like it kind of took all the energy out of him as he just could not do very well in this tiebreaker period. Only hitting 3, and Murillo is unfortunately, although the number 1 seed, or maybe he was the 2, I think they're tied for home runs at this point. He cannot make it past the first round. Now, Neil Dorsey needs to beat a score of 22 here in his second round, going against Brian De La Cruz. Earns that first 440-foot homer, and here he gets the second, once again earning that crucial 30 seconds of bonus time. Now behind Brian, 1 here. This shot will tie him up, and he's got a couple of chances here to take the lead, or are we going to a tiebreaker period once more? This one's back and doesn't quite have the carry. I thought the one before that was pretty dang close. I can't imagine it was too far from being a home run, but ultimately, much like Murillo did, it just kind of felt like he lost some steam there for that tiebreaker period. Ends up only losing by 1, still hitting 5 home runs in period, but neither player even making it to the final round was a bit of a disappointment when you have the number 1 and number 2 seeds. So there it is. There's the home run derby. Neither player, unfortunately, coming home with the victory, but we've got Boston Red Sox versus Colorado Rockies here. Gotta see Nolan Jones play against us. He has been our arch nemesis throughout this franchise, and I know I've apparently been referring to Boston as the Celtics in multiple episodes. It's the NBA playoffs time, you know? That's just, I'm gonna call Boston by the Celtics, particularly because I've always just historically watched a lot more basketball than baseball, but we're gonna see this game from the eyes of Jose Barreto. We've watched him pitch a lot this year with varying successes, had some good games, has had some not so great outings as well. But in Colorado, going against the Red Sox, it's time to see if Nolan Jones continues his big-time success against his former team. 2 gone already here in the first. And Barreto retire our arch nemesis here. Of course, he only needs 1 home run to get his 200th career homer. That would be a big milestone for him to get at Coors. And he's hit a home run every single time we've faced him so far in this series. Fan wants a signed Barreto jersey. And he's actually turned things around quite a bit this year after a pretty rough start that I thought would result in him getting a call down, maybe back to AAA for part of the year. But there he gets Nolan Jones looking. A little bit of a sneak peek as to why he's gotten his numbers in such a better spot there. A great inning, no hits allowed. Rafael Devers hitting in that 4th spot. If you watched Mr. Hurricane's MLB The Show 21 franchise, you know Rafael Devers can have some success in Coors as well. Will Benson, though, is the one that gets the scoring going for the Boston Red Sox here. The Rockies had put up 3 runs in the first inning, but Boston gets 2 of those back here with the 8th home run of the season for Benson. And with the walk allowed to Devers, you don't love to see it. Hopefully, if you allow home runs, you can allow mostly solo shots. Those you can get away with and still end up with some pretty good games. But when you're allowing multiple runs per home run, that's when outings can start to get pretty tricky. And now allowing 2 straight walks is going to make it even harder here. But the 4-6-3 double play puts 2 Boston outs on the board. Nice play initiated there by Kyle Brown. Then a nice throw by Murillo to finish it off. Mikey Romero hitting in the 9th spot for Boston here. Flies out to center field where Logan Cerny settles underneath and ends the inning. Not a great second inning there for Barreto. This one a bunt attempt by Duran, and he gets thrown out. He also tried to bunt in the first inning. I don't know what it is with this guy and trying to bunt. I mean, grow up here, my guy. But either way, we've been able to get him out both times, so no harm, no foul. Will Brennan up next. Lazy fly, handled by Zach Veen. 2 up, 2 down. Looking closer to that first inning, which you love to see. Nolan Jones back up and pops this one up. There is, something to be said. We're technically not the team that most recently let go of Nolan Jones anymore, is Rafael Devers, excuse me. I've been calling the name Murillo so much in this franchise. But Devers ties this game up at 3 apiece. But back to my previous thoughts. We're technically not the most recent previous team of Nolan Jones anymore. So maybe all the hatred and the home runs will be traveling to San Diego instead of Colorado now, which I would certainly not be opposed to. I have seen enough Nolan Jones home runs in this series, which in anything but a draft-only series, you'd probably want to see even more Nolan Jones home runs, but there you have it. Vaughn Grisham grounds out to Murillo, and 2 down here in the 4th. That'll bring up Matt Vierling. Inside pitch, lifted over to Cerny, and the inning is over. 3 runs allowed through 4 for Barreto. He's out here in the 5th. We see another fly ball to Cerny. Hasn't had to make any, difficult plays, but he's certainly been involved in this game. Strikeout swinging on the curveball, high and outside. 3rd strikeout for Barreto. Hasn't been striking out as many in these last couple starts as he gets 2 in a row here, as he was whenever we watched earlier on, like spring and in the beginning of the season. But that was to be expected. I don't think he was going to keep up the strikeout pace we were watching just due to his ratings. But overall, not a terrible start so far. Can we get through 6 and hold on to the lead? Nolan Jones goes to 0 for 3, and I'm starting to think all of his hatred is now directed towards the Padres and not us, because he just hasn't quite had that same it factor he has every time we've faced him. Devers hits this one deep, and it's tracked down by Zach Veen. Excellent play over in left field to stop what honestly should have been a hit. And the Rockies will come away victorious here in this game against Boston. Not only was this the first time we played against Nolan Jones where he didn't hit a home run, he didn't get a hit at all. So, foe vanquished, question mark? I think that might be the case. It's time. It's time to make trade number 3 in the series. And we are going to be acquiring Gordon Pringle here at the trade deadline from the Los Angeles Dodgers. Don't know how much longer he will not be on the 40-man roster. Unfortunately, they just barely promoted him to AAA. So we don't have much stats to go on, but we know in his 7 innings in AAA, he's struck out 11, walked nobody, and has a 0 ERA. So his start at AAA was pretty insane. I want to acquire this player. The low home runs per 9 definitely does concern me, but I think stamina at 80 is nice. I like the pitch mix. I like the fact that he's got high walks per 9. I like the fact that he has really high pitcher clutch. I especially like the fact that he's the best lefty on the market. And it's been a position that every single year somehow seems to elude me. Couldn't get what we wanted in this year's class either with Lily. So we're going to be giving them Gregorio Dominguez, just a prospect that I continue to kind of forget about whenever I think about the future of the franchise, which probably isn't a good sign for him being a long-term fit for us, but he's going to have really good discipline, so he's going to hit for average, and I think he has a chance to end up being a pretty good player here for Los Angeles, which, if you know me, I like making the division harder. Not going to be a defender at all. I probably should add like second base as a secondary position for this guy, just because I feel like you could maybe mask his defense a little bit better at second over third, but I don't know. And then we're going to give them 2 starting pitching prospects. Chip Howe, 18 years old, already 73 overall. It's the pitcher clutch, really, that I think makes this somebody I'm willing to trade off. He has +3, so it's developing for Chip here, but still in the 30s for a little while longer. He'll probably be in the 40s by the time this season is done, but he's another guy that should simulate pretty well with the high walks per 9, has good stamina, good pitching prospect, but you got to give up something if you want the best lefty in baseball prospect-wise, and I think the number 2 overall pitching prospect, maybe number 3. We'll also be giving up Chris Benoit, just because of the name and the reputation that comes with it. I thought about going somewhere else, but he's got 70 stamina. Yes, he has a 5-pitch mix, but it's 2 fastballs and a sinker. Doesn't have hardly anything that has horizontal break. So yeah, it was really between him and Ralph Gilmore. I decided to keep Gilmore in this case. He's one guy that we haven't been able to watch, but I do want to eventually see him throw that palm ball. So I gotta find a way to watch this guy play some baseball. And he's also now the number 1 starting pitcher prospect in baseball, so I want to keep him. He has that 96 potential. At least he had 96 potential when we drafted him. I don't know what it is now, but it's a little bit of an overpay. But since it's in the division, I think overpaying a division rival just makes it a little bit more fun. And thus, Gordon Pringle will be the 3rd and final trade that we are allowed to make in this series. No more trading is allowed. So we have to stick with what we've got and draft what we need. I think we have a really good roster, and I don't think we have many holes, especially now that we've filled that lefty pitcher spot. I feel like with the draft that we just had, getting our leadoff hitter of the future, hopefully, in this draft, the one glaring weakness we had was lefty pitching, and we filled it here. I truly think we have everything it takes. Obviously, people still need to develop and everything. I think we have all the pieces we need to build not just a future champion, but a multi-year champion. A team that can be at the top of the league for many years to come. But that's all hypothetical. We need the team to actually deliver. Let's take a look where the team sits here at the end of this episode. Ending at actually the exact same date that we ended the last episode. Technically with the draft. Just showed you the stuff that I did in July, other than the draft here in this episode. So we've got Rafael Murillo up to 98 overall, 344 average, 32 home runs, losing one contact versus left. He's pretty much what he's going to be. He might have 99 potential, so he might go up a little bit more, but this is the player that Rafael Murillo is going to be. Now, he'll have some rating shuffles year by year going forward, but he's maxed out at the age of 22, having by far the best year of his career, 32 home runs already, only 2 RBIs behind what he did last year, and not having as good of a walks to strikeout ratio, but 344 average, first time over 400 on base percentage, first time in the 700s OPS, first time over 1,000 OPS. So his WAR is already his career high, and we still have almost 2 full months to go in the season. That's pretty insane for this player who's had such a good start to his career, having his career year, just helping propel the Rockies to a hopeful playoff berth. 372 isolated power is nuts, only 11 at-bats per home run. Ethan Salas is picking up the pace a bit. Still, I would say you want more, but considering how his season started, I think I'm going to take where it's ended up at this point. It's an improvement over last year at this point by 50 points in his OPS, which is pretty good. WAR is going to end up probably in a pretty similar place. Guess a little bit higher than what it was last year, but still not quite the offensive player that we were hoping for. But look at these defensive numbers. He's a really good defender at one of the more important defensive positions there is. Chase Dolander on a hot streak here, losing 1 hit per 9 and stamina, unfortunately. So not actually getting any better. I think his potential is 90 or maybe 91. So he's also a guy who's kind of topped out at being what he is. WAR-wise, not as good as he was last year, just not striking as many players out. WAR does love pitchers who strike people out. And we could just get +1 to that walks per 9. He'd have everything in the 70s there in his per 9s, but he's kind of probably who he is at this point. He's going to be kind of maybe a high 3s ERA player, 1.3, 1.4 WHIP player, which I'm going to take for this year and the next 3 years at the very least. Chase Dolander maybe had some expectations at the very beginning of the series that he could be the guy, but we ended up drafting some players that I feel like have kind of overtaken that hype and allowed him to settle into what he has been, which I believe is a really solid pitcher. Clemente Herrera, this deep into the season, still hitting well over 300. He's having himself quite the rookie year, and if he didn't share the same rookie year as Neil Dorsey, would be hyped up a lot more than he has been. Neil Dorsey, just the way he is playing, is taking up a lot of the spotlight, but Clemente Herrera has been really flipping good as well. OPS above 850 as a rookie is awesome, up to a 2.5 WAR, getting some nice bonuses across the board. Kopech might be his final season with the team. Jose Barreto was decent in his start today, but overall having himself a good rookie year and doing a decent job at limiting home runs, probably about where you'd expect it to be. Kyle Brown, not having himself as good of an offensive season as he had last year. Not actually that much of a regression in OPS. 20 points there isn't terrible from him, and his fielding is actually remarkably similar as well. So getting actually a pretty similar player to last year. A guy who's you're fine having as a starter, maybe not a star player, but puts in work and is a good starter. Sterling Thompson, that power has gone up this year. Already a career high in home runs, and we still got plenty of season left to go. But it's his worst season average-wise. His average has dropped every single season of his career, but his home runs have gone up. So maybe just a product of Coors Field becoming more of a power player as his career goes along. Terrible contact versus lefties, but vision's almost getting up there to 80, which is pretty good. Another guy that I'm fine with playing, but I don't think he's the long-term solution, especially with who we just drafted. I think Richie James has got to probably be the favorite to be our long-term third baseman at this point. Neil Dorsey, what can you say about Neil freaking Dorsey, man? What an incredible year from him. Pitching way better than I thought he would. I thought he was going to have to pitch through a lot of struggles early on in the career and just be somebody who was an asset as a hitter, but not so much as a pitcher. That has not been the case. He's pitching really well compared to expectations. Add in the fact that he's hitting over 300 with 33 home runs is absolutely wild. This guy has been awesome. Ryan Doe, only 228, 15 home runs is pretty good. Having a better year against righties than he is against lefties. He will be Rule 5 eligible after this next season, so he is a primetime candidate to get the call up to September because he's going to have to be added to the 40-man roster in the offseason anyway. So let's just get that power bat onto the team for September. Have some fun with it. I think that's definitely what we're leaning to. Zach Veen, he's got his numbers a little bit further up after a rough start. He's kind of in between what he was last year and what he was 2 years ago. I feel like is more what I was expecting of him. I thought last year was a very pleasant surprise. I thought the year before was a disappointment. This is probably around what I expect from Zach. Santillan, 34 saves, 7 blown, so he's not had quite as stellar of a year as last year. We've got some closers close to being ready though, so I think we're not asking him to be a closer for much longer. James Unger, probably one of the bigger disappointments here of the year. Was really hoping for him to be a September call-up, but I'm not comfortable with these numbers calling him up. Let's not rush him. Let's make sure he's ready. Needs some more of these per nines other than home runs per nine. I think a little bit higher before he is ready, so no rush with him. Was hoping he could get a call-up. Probably just not going to be the case. They need one more year for the hometown kid to make his Rockies debut. James Blanco, really done a better job as of late. I remember last time I checked on him, his whip was like 1.6. So 139 still maybe a little bit higher, which is why his hits per nine is going down. But 29 saves to 2 blown saves here at AA. Been an awesome closer for the AA team. A guy who, I mean, if it wasn't for, Rich Walsh closing for AAA, he would be in AAA already, but we have our AAA closer who's also having an awesome year, 23 saves to just 1 blown save. There. And let's see. Johnny Brennan here. Nope, we're skipping a couple guys. Shouldn't have jumped around to the closer. Borzelski, really good whip, not so good on the ERA, but I think you'll take this for a rookie year for him. We've got Rico Salazar, 14 home runs, 261 average. That power versus lefties developing quite nicely here. He's somebody that won't take much longer. Gonna be in AAA next year for sure. I think Walsh talked about him. Excellent season as a closer. Omar Figueroa, not the best season. I'd say this is definitely of his first 3 seasons,
This has been the worst. His first year under 800 OPS. Not terrible by any means, but I'm looking for more power than a guy still sitting at single digits home runs at first base. Herb Reyes is probably the pitcher most likely to get the September call-up this year. I know the hits per nine aren't great, but without a lefty, and he's been pitching really good. He had one blip year where he wasn't great. And every other year, he's pitched really awesome here in this franchise. Smeltzer was on fire earlier in the year. He's kind of cooled down here. Anton Hernandez, somebody I've always been rooting for to make it just because of that velocity and stamina combo. Ratings are slowly getting better and better. Still, I think a couple seasons away, though. Lozano was terrible to start the year. He's still not looking great, but it's getting better. Ramirez, okay. Juan Rocha, guy whose average just isn't where you want it to be. He has not been developing as quickly as I had hoped as a hitter. His discipline's getting in a really good spot. So he's, getting a lot of walks up in there, but the hitting stats themselves, that's a grand net zero on his increases, which you don't love to see. And with Omar Figueroa not being great at first base, really hoping for some development from Rocha, maybe a hot last 2 months and get him going. Gordon Pringle, he's now played one more game, and he's looking good at AAA. We just acquired him. Avalos, not great here, I'd say, from him, but he's a little bit more of a defender than anything else. And probably with the drafting of Richie James, looking more like maybe the backup infielder at this point in the franchise. Ralph Gilmore, awesome season at AA. He's definitely ready to make the call up to AAA for sure. Under a 3 ERA, under a 1 whip, going up across the board. You'll love to see it. Gotta watch this guy play. I know I've said it many times, but I gotta actually make it happen one of these days. Raymond Park has just been terrible. At this point, if we get anything out of him, I'm gonna be pleasantly surprised. Eric Suzuki up to a 63 overall. Still has some per nines in the 30s. He's many years away, and that's pretty much gonna wrap it up. Got a lot of players to go through. Let's see what here's an update on Mac Moses. Lefty year. Still many years away as well. A lot of players to go through this deep into a franchise. We've got a lot of guys that we've drafted with A and B potential, but the team is looking good. And 66 and 46 here, nearing being a top 10 MLB team. Hopefully, maybe by the end of the year, we can be a top 10 MLB team for the first time in this franchise. And we'll see if we can actually take the division. Last year, we choked it away in September and choked away the playoffs in general. I'm much more confident in what I'm seeing. Last year, I thought we were maybe overperforming, but with Murillo and Neil Dorsey being MVP favorites, I can't see the team fumbling this one away with 2 months remaining. So get ready for Rocktober. I think it's coming for the first time this season. That's all I've got for the episode. We'll be back soon with more Rockies, and I'll see you then. Go Rockies.